The night she was sold, Elena Vance realized the world had already decided what she was: a curse, a killer, a black widow who left 3 husbands dead behind her. But none of the men binding her hands cared that none of the accusations were true. A single gunshot cracked across the winter plain, echoing so sharply that even the horses flinched. Elena didn't blink. Fear had burned out of her long ago, leaving only a tired defiance in her dark, storm-colored eyes. Her captors, 3 rough frontier men who smelled of whiskey, grease, and stale regret, jerked her forward until the snow crunched beneath her boots. A fire pit glowed beside the trading post, flames snapping in the wind like they too were impatient. "Bring her out here," the leader barked. "He's coming." Elena stared at the swirling snow, fighting the urge to collapse. She had been dragged across 2 territories, beaten twice, and accused 100 times. But she still stood, even with her wrists cut raw by rope, even with her life about to be bargained like cattle, because she had one secret left, one hope she would die to protect. A tall, solitary figure emerged from the blizzard, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a thick buffalo hide, raven-black hair spilling down his back despite the wind. He moved with a calmness that made the white men stiffen. "Apache," one muttered, but Elena felt something else entirely: stillness, power, sadness. The stranger stopped just a few feet from her. His face was carved, stern yet beautiful, with dark eyes that flickered from the men to Elena's tied wrists. He spoke quietly in accented English. "You take woman against her will." "She ain't no woman," the leader sneered. "She's a black widow, killed her husbands. Town wants her gone." The Apache man's eyes returned to Elena, and for the first time in days, someone looked at her, not at what they claimed she was. "What is your name?" he asked. Elena swallowed hard. Her throat burned, her lips cracked from the cold. "Elena Vance." He nodded once, as if the name mattered. Then he reached into a leather pouch and pulled out something glittering, a silver hawk pendant, unmistakably sacred. The men leaned forward. "You got the payment?" the leader asked. The Apache warrior held the pendant up to the firelight. "This is my father's," he said. "Worth more than your lies." Elena stiffened. This man, this stranger, was trading his own heritage for her? Why? The answer came moments later. "She is not cursed woman," he said. "She is mine." The words sliced through the snowy air like a blade. Elena's knees nearly buckled. She had never seen this man before. Why would he claim her? Something deep and instinctive whispered, "He's saving you. Play your part." The leader spat, but greed gleamed in his eyes. "Fine, take your witch. She ain't our problem anymore." The Apache man stepped forward, cut the rope from her wrist with a dagger of carved obsidian, then gently set his buffalo cloak across her shoulders. Warmth engulfed her, and something else. Respect, not desire, not ownership, protection. He leaned close and whispered just loud enough for her to hear, his breath warming her frozen cheek. "You want to live? Walk beside me. Do not look back." Elena nodded. They left the campfire behind, stepping into the blizzard as the snow swallowed the men's voices, their laughter fading into nothing. The ride into the Unkane Anudimbi Apache man lifted her onto his horse, mounting behind her with effortless strength. She could feel his warmth even through the thick hide. The wind howled like an angry spirit, but he guided the horse as if he saw through the storm. Elena clutched the reins, her fingers trembling. After a long silence, she whispered, "You don't even know me." "I know lies when I hear them," he replied. "How?" His voice softened. "Because lies have fear behind them. Your eyes do not fear death." Elena closed her eyes, swallowing the sting of tears. "I'm not what they say I am." "I know," he said simply. It was the gentlest sentence anyone had spoken to her in 5 years. His Anayami hours later, the storm calmed enough to see the moon again. The land spread endlessly, rolling white plains dotted with broken fences and lone juniper trees. "We stop soon," he said. She looked over her shoulder. "You still haven't told me your name." He hesitated, then answered quietly, "Sahale." The word flowed like river water. "What does it mean?" She asked. "Falcon. But my mother say it means something else, one who walks alone." The sadness she heard wasn't imagined. Elena glanced down at the silver hawk pendant he traded for her, his father's. He'd said, "You gave up something precious." "I did not give," he corrected. "I traded to save your life." "That is different. Why?" She whispered. His answer came slowly, as if he had been keeping the truth buried under many winters. "Because 2 nights ago, I dreamed a woman with storm eyes would stand at my side. A woman the world feared. A woman the spirits blessed." Elena's breath caught. "You think I'm that woman?" "I do not think," he murmured. "I feel." No one had ever believed in her, not even when she begged for mercy. Not when her first husband died from a snake bite and they accused her of poisoning him. Not when the second was killed in a bar fight she had nothing to do with. Not when the third collapsed from a heart attack she couldn't have prevented. 3 dead men. 3 towns whispering one phrase, black. Widow. She had been hunted ever since, and yet this stranger, this Sahale, looked at her like she was something rare. Something worth trading a family heirloom for. Dawn broke just as they approached a narrow canyon. Smoke rose from a hidden hollow. Sahale stiffened. "Get down," he ordered. Elena slid off the horse behind a boulder. Sahale scanned the ridgeline, nostrils flaring as if scenting danger. "What is it?" She whispered. "Riders. White men. The same 3 who sold you." Her blood ran cold. "No. They couldn't have followed this far." But then she heard it, hooves striking rock. 3 silhouettes emerged above the canyon walls. The leader shouted, "You think you can steal our property?" Sahale stepped forward, bow still strapped but spine straight. His shadow long against the rising sun. "She is not property. She's worth $50 dead or alive," the man snarled. Elena's stomach dropped. They wanted their reward. Alive or dead, it didn't matter. Sahale turned to her. "Stay behind me." The men drew rifles. Time froze. Sahale moved first, grabbing Elena, pulling her down just as a bullet whistled past her head. The echo boomed across the canyon like thunder. "Run!" he shouted. They sprinted deeper into the pass, boots kicking up frozen dust. More shots tore through the air. Elena stumbled. Sahale caught her by the waist, steadying her effortlessly. Gunfire rained from above. The canyon wall shook. Sahale's breath came in harsh bursts. "You should have left me," she gasped. "No," he said through clenched teeth. "I told the spirits I would protect you." A final shot cracked, the sound sharp and final. Sahale jerked. Elena's scream tore itself from her throat. A dark stain spread across his shoulder. He stumbled, dropping to one knee. "Sahale!" He forced himself up, pushing her toward a narrow split in the rocks. "Go. I won't leave you." His fingers brushed her cheek, gentle, warm despite the blood. "You are not cursed woman," he whispered. "You are the beginning." And then he collapsed. Elena grabbed him. Shaking, desperate, tears mixing with snow above them. The riders closed in. She lifted Sahale's fallen obsidian knife with trembling hands. For the first time in her life, Elena Vance prepared to kill. Elena crouched over Sahale's bleeding body, snow soaking into her skirt as she pressed her shaking hands against his wound. "Stay awake," she whispered, voice breaking. "Please, Sahale. Stay with me." His eyelids fluttered, his breath shallow but stubborn. Above them, the men who had sold her scrambled down the canyon walls, their cruel laughter echoing like a death knell. Elena tightened her grip around the obsidian knife, her heart pounding so violently she felt it might burst out of her chest. One of the men sneered as he jumped from a ledge and landed just a few yards away. "Look at that! Our little black widow finally shows her fangs." He cocked his rifle. "Stand up, girl. We ain't here for him. We're here to finish what we started." Elena rose slowly, positioning herself between Sahale and the men. The wind whipped her hair across her face, but her eyes, storm gray, trembling with fury, never left theirs. She lifted the blade. "You're not taking me," she said. "And you're not touching him." The leader scoffed. "You ain't killed nobody before. You ain't got it in you." Elena didn't know if he was right. She had never taken a life. But she also had never had someone trade his future, his ancestry, and his blood for her. She refused to let Sahale die for believing she was worth something. The first man lunged. Elena darted sideways, the knife grazing his arm. He howled. "You little." Another shot exploded from the ridge, but the bullet hit rock, scattering shards of stone. Sahale forced his eyes open, gasping as he pushed himself onto one elbow. "Elena, run." "No," she said. "I won't leave you." The second man charged toward her. Elena swung the knife wildly, terror shaking her wrist. The blade cut across his cheek. Blood splattered the snow. He roared with rage and backhanded her, sending her sprawling in the cold. "Enough!" The leader shouted as he raised his rifle and aimed at Sahale. "We kill him, she give herself up. She always does. Women like her break easy." Elena's scream tore the air. She lunged, throwing herself at the leader just as he fired. The bullet cracked through the air and slammed into the canyon wall, missing Sahale by inches. Elena wrestled with the rifle, her fingers slipping on cold metal. The man slammed his elbow into her ribs, knocking the wind out of her, but she refused to let go. The two tumbled into the snow, kicking up icy powder as they struggled for the barrel. The man snarled, "You ain't worth the trouble." Elena's hand tightened around the obsidian knife still clutched in her grip. She drove it forward. A choked sound escaped his throat. He stared down at the blade buried in his chest, disbelief clouding his eyes. Elena froze. Her breath hitched. The world stopped. The man collapsed into the snow, his blood steaming in the cold air. The second captor hesitated, face twisted with shock. The third turned pale. She killed him," he stammered. Elena stumbled back, shaking violently. She had never taken a life. The world felt distant, unreal, as if she were floating above it. The remaining men backed away toward their horses, eyes wide with a fear she had never seen directed at her before. "To hell with this," one muttered. They fled, hooves pounding as they disappeared from the canyon. Elena dropped the knife and fell to her knees beside Sahale. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears burning her cheeks. "I'm so sorry." Sahale reached up with trembling fingers and brushed her face. "Do not be," he murmured. "You saved us." "You saved me first," she whispered. "I only returned what you gave." His blood soaked into her skirt. She pressed her palms to the wound again, desperate. "I need to get you out of here." "Water." He breathed. "We must." "Move." Elena gritted her teeth. She slid her shoulder under his arm, bracing herself. Sahale groaned but managed to rise enough for her to harry, half-drag him toward a fissure in the canyon wall. The narrow crack led into a hidden alcove sheltered from the wind. Elena lowered him gently to the ground, then sprinted out to gather snow for water, her breath shuddering with panic. When she returned, Sahale was pale but conscious, watching her with steady, unreadable eyes. She pressed the snow to his lips. "We need herbs," he whispered. "Need fire, heat." something to stop the bleeding. Elena looked toward the canyon entrance. Smoke still rose from a small abandoned camp they'd passed earlier. Supplies, maybe herbs, maybe bandages. She took a trembling breath. I'll go. I'll be quick. No, Sahale rasped. They may return. Elena looked into his eyes. They'll kill us both if I do nothing. He tried to protest, but pain stole his breath. Elena squeezed his hand. Stay awake. Stay alive. I'm coming back. She ran. Her boots pounded through the snow, lungs burning as she sprinted toward the remnants of the camp. It was deserted. A broken wagon lay on its side, a dead fire pit smoldering. She tore through saddlebags, crates, anything left behind. Her heart raced. Her hands shook. She found a strip of cloth, a small tin of salve, a flask of water. Even a handful of dried yarrow. Sahale had mentioned the plant once while they rode. She stuffed everything into her skirt and bolted back toward the canyon dock, but as she neared the pass, a horse's whinny froze her, hoof prints fresh ones cut into the snow. Elena's stomach twisted. She dropped low, creeping behind a boulder. Voices drifted through the wind. Familiar voices. The two remaining captors had returned, and they were standing right outside the alcove where Sahale lay. You check in there, one said. I'll watch the horses. Elena felt the world spin. Sahale couldn't fight. He was barely conscious. And if the men reached him, no, she couldn't let that happen. She clutched the flask, then reached into her skirt. Her fingers brushed the heavy shard of wagon wood she'd grabbed without thinking. It wasn't a weapon, but it was something she had to use. She stepped out from behind the boulder. Snow crunching loudly. The man closest to the alcove turned. You, he snarled. Thought you got away? Elena didn't answer. She charged. She swung the wood with all her strength. It struck his jaw with a sickening crack. He toppled into the snow. The second man spun, drawing his pistol. But Elena dove behind a rock as the gunshot rang out, the bullet grazing past her ear. He fired again. She crawled through the snow, breath ragged, ducking behind every stone and ledge she could find. Come out, he roared. You ain't winning this, girl. She spotted movement at the corner of her eye. Sahale, staggering out of the alcove, using the canyon wall for support. Elena, he rasped. Down. She dropped instantly. Sahale lifted his arm, shaking, bleeding, and hurled a stone with surprising force. It struck the man's temple. He crumpled in the snow, dropping the pistol from his hand. Silence settled over the canyon like a heavy blanket. Elena crawled to Sahale, catching him before he collapsed. You shouldn't have moved, she whispered. You could have died. I said, he murmured faintly, I protect you. She pressed her forehead to his. Then let me protect you now. They made it back into the alcove. Elena tore the cloth into bandages, cleaned his wound with melted snow, crushed the dried yarrow between her fingers, and pressed it into the bleeding. Sahale winced but didn't pull away. You have done this before? He whispered. No, she said. But I've seen enough pain to learn fast. He watched her quietly, breath shallow but steady. The spirits. They send people when they are needed, not when they are ready. She blinked back tears. I was never ready for any of this, yet you did not run. His eyes softened. You are stronger than you believe. Elena wrapped the bandage tightly, her hand still trembling, though now from emotion rather than fear. You shouldn't believe so much in me, she whispered. Sahale reached weakly for her hand. His warm fingers curled around hers. Then believe for both of us, he murmured. Elena didn't know if she could. All she knew was she wasn't letting him die. Not after everything he had given her. Not now that someone finally saw her not as a curse, But as a woman worth saving, and for the first time in years, Elena felt something break inside her, something heavy, something long chained by pain and accusation. She felt hope. The canyon remained eerily silent for hours, broken only by the faint crackle of a tiny fire Elena nursed with trembling hands. Sahale lay beside her, wrapped in the buffalo hide she had draped over him. His breathing was shallow, but steadier than before. She kept checking his forehead, his pulse, his color, terrified that if she stopped, his life might slip away in the cold. He opened his eyes just as she reached for more snow to melt. "Elena." His voice was a whisper. She exhaled shakily. "You scared me, again." He tried to sit up but winced as pain tore through his shoulder. Elena pushed him gently back down. "Don't," she said firmly. "Not unless you want to bleed again." Sahale's eyes softened in the firelight. "You saved me twice today." She shook her head, brushing stray snowflakes from his hair. "I didn't save you. I just couldn't lose you." She hadn't meant to say it out loud. Her cheeks flushed. She busied herself with the fire. "Rest. Talking is making it worse." Sahale studied her quietly. Though in pain, a faint smile touched the corner of his mouth. "Your heart is loud," he whispered. "Loud enough that even I can hear it." Elena froze, a breath caught in her chest. She wanted to deny the warmth rising inside her, but it was too late. She couldn't hide anything from him, not anymore. The night grew colder, the canyon wind slicing like a blade. Elena pulled the hide tighter around Sahale, then curled up close enough to shield him with her body heat. The proximity made her heart race, but she refused to let him shiver alone. His warmth seeped into her, and she felt both comforted and terrified. After a long silence, Sahale murmured, "You should sleep." "I will," she said softly. "After you do, I am awake, barely." He breathed out a quiet laugh, painful but sincere. His hand found hers, fingers brushing gently across her knuckles. Elena stiffened, but didn't pull away. Their hands remained intertwined, lingering in a silence that felt strangely peaceful. Hours passed before exhaustion overtook her. She drifted into sleep leaning against him, her hand still in his at dawn. She woke to warmth and an empty space beside her. Her eyes shot open. "Sahale?" She scrambled to her feet, fear sliming through her. But then she saw him standing unsteadily at the canyon entrance, leaning on a branch he'd shaped into a crude walking staff. He looked pale, breath fogging sharply in the cold, but alive. She rushed to him. "What are you doing? You shouldn't even be standing." He steadied himself, placing one hand on the canyon wall. "The men will return with others. We cannot stay." Elena swallowed hard. "You can barely move. How are we supposed to travel anywhere?" Sahale met her gaze with quiet certainty. "Together." The word hit her like a blow to the heart. Her instinct was to argue, but the determination in his eyes silenced her. She sighed, slipping his arm over her shoulders, letting him lean on her. "Fine," she muttered. "But you're going to listen to me for once. No heroics. No wandering off. And no pretending you're invincible." He gave her a faint smile. "I hear you, Elena." She ignored the way her stomach fluttered. They left the canyon slowly, each step a struggle for Sahale. Elena kept glancing back, terrified the men might return. The bodies they had left behind drew scavenger birds overhead. Sahale noticed her trembling. "Do not fear them." "I'm not afraid of them," she whispered. "I'm afraid of losing you." That stunned him. He slowed, looking at her fully. "Elena, why would you fear that?" She swallowed. "Because every man I ever cared for died. And now you're hurt protecting me." Her voice cracked. "What if the others were right? What if I am cursed?" Sahale stopped walking and reached up with his good hand to touch her cheek. His thumb brushed away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "You are not cursed," he said firmly. "You are hunted by men who fear a woman they cannot break. There is a difference." Elena closed her eyes, leaning into his palm for a fragile moment. When she opened them, she saw honesty in his gaze, warmth, a quiet devotion she didn't know how to handle. She looked away before she could fall too deeply into it. "We need to keep moving." They walked for hours through the frozen plains, following a narrow trail that wound toward distant cliffs. Elena supported most of Sahale's weight, though he tried not to let her. The sky turned a steely gray, hinting at another storm. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To my people," Sahale said. "To the winter camp in the Red Basin. Won't they?" She hesitated. "Won't they judge me?" Sahale answered without hesitation. "My people do not judge based on the lies of strangers." Elena hoped he was right, because deep inside a fear lingered. What if his people rejected her? What if they blamed her for his injury? What if she cost him everything? By late afternoon they reached a ridge overlooking a long valley dusted with white. Smoke trails rose from distant shelters. Sahale's steps faltered. His knees buckled. Elena caught him just before he fell. Panic shot through her. "Sahale." His eyes fluttered. "Just tired." "No, you're losing blood." She eased him to the ground. "You can't go farther." "We need help now." But the camp was still far below that. She chewed her lip, scanning the valley. They couldn't wait. She looked at him, resolved. "I'll go down myself. I'll get someone to come up here." Sahale shook his head weakly. "No, too dangerous." "You can't move another step," she insisted. "Let me do this." Sahale stared at her, torn between fear and trust. Finally, he nodded. "Be quick." She squeezed his hand once, then hurried down the ridge, sliding on loose snow. Her heart hammered, breath burning. She stumbled into the valley, waving her arms at two figures tending a fire outside a shelter. They stiffened, hands going to their weapons. She held up her empty palms. "Please, I need help. Sahale is hurt." The name made them pause. A tall older woman with streaks of silver in her braids stepped forward. Her eyes were sharp and assessing. "Who are you?" "Elena," she gasped. "He saved my life. Men attacked us. He's bleeding badly." The woman exchanged a look with a younger warrior beside her. Without another question, they followed Elena up the path. When they reached the ridge, Sahale lay slumped against a rock, barely conscious. The older woman knelt beside him. "Sahale." He blinked weakly. "Atsa," he whispered, recognizing her. Elena realized she must be someone important. The woman Atsa pressed her hand to his wound, inspecting it with practiced skill. "Foolish boy," she murmured. "Always giving blood for everyone but yourself." She stood. "We take him to camp, now." The younger warrior lifted Sahale carefully. Elena followed close behind, terrified to let him out of her sight. When they reached the winter camp, dozens of Apache gathered around. Murmurs rippled through them. "Sahale. He is injured." "Who is the woman?" Atsa raised her hand. Silence fell instantly. "Bring him to my shelter," she commanded. "And bring blankets, heated stones, and willow bark." Elena stayed at Sahale's side as they carried him inside a warm, fire-lit lodge. Atsa worked quickly cleaning the wound, applying a poultice, binding it tightly. Elena helped whenever asked, her hands steady though her heart trembled. After hours of tending, Sahale slept peacefully for the first time since the canyon. Atsa turned to Elena, her expression unreadable. "You care for him." It wasn't a question. Elena swallowed. "Yes, more than I meant to." Atsa nodded slowly. "He is a good man." "A lonely one." He has walked many winters without choosing anyone to stand beside him. Elena lowered her gaze. And now? After all this, will he be all right? He will live, Atsa said, because you stayed with him. Relief washed through Elena so powerfully she nearly collapsed. Atsa studied her for a long moment. Then she said quietly, Sahale brought you into our camp. That means he sees something in you. Elena's chest tightened. I owe him my life. Atsa's voice softened. No, that is not why he chose you. Elena turned toward Sahale, watching his steady breaths, the peaceful curve of his mouth. Something in her chest ached deeply. Atsa whispered one final truth. Before slipping out of the lodge, he chose you because to him, you are not a curse. You are a blessing he has waited many winters to find. Elena sat beside him in the flickering firelight, brushing her fingers lightly across his hand. For the first time in years, she wasn't running. She wasn't hunted. She wasn't alone, and she had no idea what awaited her in the coming days, only that something in her life had already shifted forever. Snow fell in slow spirals that morning, soft and lazy, but the cold beneath it was sharp enough to sting. Elena tightened the blanket around her shoulders as she stepped out of Sahale's lodge. The tribe had finally allowed her to walk freely through the camp under watch, but without the tense looks that had once followed her. Children ran past her laughing, dusting each other with snow. Women stirred pots over low fires, and the men repaired arrows or scraped hides. It almost felt like she belonged. Sahale emerged behind her, pulling on his heavy fur-lined cloak. His breath rolled out in pale white clouds beneath the dawn. You should not be out without proper covering, he muttered, stepping beside her. I'm fine, Elena said, even though she wasn't. Her fingers tingled from the cold. I needed fresh air. You need gloves, Sahale corrected, and before she could argue, he took her hands in his. His palms were warm, always warmer than anyone she'd ever known. He examined her cold fingers, the crease between his brows deepening. You do not take care of yourself. Elena's breath caught at the sudden closeness. I didn't grow up with 10 layers of fur, she teased. You are stubborn. He released her gently, but not before pressing soft buckskin gloves into her hands. Wear them. She shrugged them on, grateful for the warmth. Thank you. A group of warriors approached just then, their footsteps crunching in the snow. The leader, Noden, dipped his head to Sahale. Scouts have returned. They say 3 riders were seen near the canyon. White men. Elena stiffened. Do you think they're looking for me? It is possible, Sahale answered, his jaw tightening. Or they may be hunters. Or scouts from a ranch. But they could be my father's men, she whispered. Sahale turned to her. Is that man the kind who would send armed men into tribal lands? Elena swallowed. If he thinks a tribal man kidnapped me, yes, he would do worse. Sahale looked at his warriors, then back at her. We will check the canyon. Stay in the camp. I want to come? No. His voice held firm command. This could be dangerous. So could leaving me behind, she argued. If my father's men see the camp, if they think I'm a captive, they won't wait to talk. They'll fire immediately. Sahale hesitated. That alone shocked the watching warriors. Sahale never hesitated. Never reconsidered. But with Elena, he paused. He finally exhaled, slow and heavy. Fine, you ride with me. But you do not leave my side. Noden smirked. She already never leaves your side. Sahale shot him a sharp glare, and Noden lifted his hands playfully. Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks. Soon they mounted Sahale's horse, a massive, dark stallion that snorted clouds into the morning air. Sahale settled behind Elena, his arms bracketing her as he took the reins. She tried not to think about how close he was, how the warmth of his chest seeped through her coat, how safe she felt, too safe. They rode through the snowy forest, hooves muffled on the thick ground. The silence grew heavy, broken only by the occasional call of a raven. After half an hour, Elena finally spoke. "If they are my father's men, what will you do?" "Protect you." Sahale didn't hesitate. "At any cost." Her heart tightened. "You don't even know me." His voice dropped, not soft, but honest. "I know your courage. I know your heart. I know you speak with truth. And I know you are not meant to be hurt by those who should have protected you." Elena lowered her gaze. "You don't know what my life is like." "Tell me," he said. But before Elena could answer, Snowden raised a hand and signaled for the group to halt. They had reached a ridge overlooking the canyon. 3 horses stood below, riderless. Tracks circled near a cluster of rocks, fresh in the snow. But there were no men in sight. Sahale dismounted, pulling Elena gently with him. They moved cautiously toward the edge of the ridge. The air felt heavier here, then Elena spotted something sticking out from a snowbank, a dark coat sleeve. "Oh no," she whispered. 2 bodies lay half buried under the fresh fall. Elena froze, gripping Sahale's arm. He lowered himself, brushing away snow from the first man's face, a ranch hand, her father's. Snowden crouched beside the second body. "Arrow wound," he observed. "Clean shot." "But not ours, not yours?" Elena echoed. "No feathers from our tribe," Sahale said. He stood slowly, his posture tense as a drawn bowstring. "Someone else killed them. But who?" Elena asked. The answer came from behind them, a sudden sharp whistle cutting through the cold air. Warriors spun. A small group of unknown riders appeared on the far ridge, 5 men wrapped in thick coats, rifles glinting in their hands. Not tribal warriors, not ranch hands, bounty men. Elena, Dawson. One of them shouted, "Step forward. You're coming with us." Sahale positioned himself instantly in front of her, body blocking her from view. His voice was a low growl. "You will not take her." "She's a missing girl from the Dawson Ranch," the man yelled back. "Her father's offering $1,000 for her return or proof of her death." Elena gasped. "Proof of my death?" Sahale's jaw clenched so hard she thought it might crack. "Your father wants you returned, or wants the world to think you cannot speak." The riders raised their rifles. The standoff hung tight in the air. Snow drifting between both sides like slow-falling ash. Back behind the rocks, Sahale ordered, "I'm not leaving you." "You are not leaving my sight," he corrected gently. "But move." Elena ducked behind a frozen outcrop while the warriors spread out, bows and spears ready. Snowden whispered, "We can take them." "No," Sahale murmured. "Not unless necessary. They want the girl alive." "Use that." Elena peered over the rock. "They'll shoot you." "They will miss," he said simply. "You can't know that." Sahale met her eyes for a brief, warm heartbeat. "I know what I must protect." Before she could answer, one of the bounty men fired a warning shot. Snow erupted near Sahale's feet. It wasn't meant to hit. It was meant to frighten. A D-idea in single quotes T.Sahale stood tall, fearless, a dark and unmoving figure against the snow. Last chance. The leader shouted, "Give her up." "No," Sahale answered. The riders reloaded. Sahale's voice turned sharp. "Snowden, smoke arrows." Snowden grinned. "Thought you'd never say it." In seconds, smoke arrows hissed across the gap, erupting into thick clouds that swallowed the ridge. Horses screamed. Men cursed. Chaos spilled over the canyon. Sahale grabbed Elena's hand. "Come." They ran, ducking low as the world blurred with swirling smoke. Bullets cracked through the air, embedding into trees. One clipped a branch inches from Elena's head. She stumbled, but Sahale caught her, pulling her protectively against his chest before lifting her easily onto the horse. He mounted behind her, gripping her waist tightly. "Hold on." The stallion launched forward, hooves pounding through fresh snow. Branches whipped past. Elena leaned into Sahale as bullets whistled behind them. Then dashed silence. They had outrun the danger. The gunfire fading into the distance. The horse slowed to a stop near a frozen creek. Elena's chest heaved. She pressed her hands against her face. "They were going to kill you," she whispered. "They did not," Sahale reminded her gently, "but they could have." Sahale slid down and helped her dismount. She fell into his arms, trembling with fear and cold and the weight of everything that had happened. His hands cupped her shoulders. "Elena!" His voice was deep, warm, grounding. "Look at me." She lifted her eyes. "You are safe," he said. "As long as I breathe, you will not be harmed." Her heart couldn't decide whether to break or melt. "Why do you care so much?" Sahale paused, his breath turning into white clouds that slipped between them. His thumb brushed a strand of her hair from her face. "You came into my life like a storm," he said softly. "You do not see your worth, but I see it." His hand lingered on her cheek. "I see you." Elena swallowed. She felt something inside her crack open, something she'd been holding shut for years. "I see you too," she whispered. They stood there. Snow falling around them, breaths mingling in the cold air. Something deep and unspoken moving between them. But before either of them could say more, a distant call echoed through the trees, Nodin's voice carrying from far away. "We need to go back," Sahale said reluctantly. Stepping back, though, his hand brushed hers as if he didn't want to fully let go. Elena nodded. But her pulse was wild, her chest tight with something she didn't dare name. When they rode back to camp, she leaned against him, not because she needed to, but because she wanted to. And Sahale, he held her a little closer than before. Something between them had changed, and neither of them could stop it now.